Most couples do not break because of cheating. They break because of something smaller, quieter, slower. An emotional gap that grows unnoticed. At first everything feels connected. Conversations flow. Laughter is easy. Attention feels natural. Both people feel seen. Then life starts moving faster. Work pressure increases. Stress becomes normal. Fatigue becomes routine. And something subtle begins to shift. No big argument happens. No dramatic betrayal occurs. But emotional presence slowly decreases. Text replies become shorter. Eye contact lasts a little less. Listening turns into waiting to talk. Affection becomes scheduled instead of spontaneous. This is how most relationships begin to weaken. Not through explosion, but through erosion. The emotional gap does not appear overnight. It grows one small moment at a time. One moment when feelings were minimized. One moment when attention was distracted. One moment when validation was replaced with logic. Men often miss this phase. Not because they do not care, but because they are wired to fix problems. When a woman shares emotion, many men respond with solutions. They offer advice. They explain reality. They correct perspective. But emotional connection does not require fixing. It requires presence. Science supports this. Studies in relationship psychology show that emotional attunement predicts long-term stability more than shared interests or attraction. Emotional attunement means recognizing emotional signals and responding with empathy rather than logic. When this attunement weakens, the emotional gap opens. At first the gap feels harmless. There is still love. There is still routine. There is still commitment. But the feeling of being emotionally met starts to fade. And humans are not wired to tolerate emotional absence for long. The brain seeks emotional regulation through connection. When that connection feels unreliable, the nervous system stays on edge. This creates subtle behaviors. Increased irritation. Less patience. More silence. Less desire to share. From the outside, everything looks fine. From the inside, distance grows. Men often assume attraction fades first. But attraction usually fades after emotional safety declines. A woman does not emotionally withdraw because she stopped caring. She withdraws because she stopped feeling emotionally held. This does not mean men are failing. It means the emotional language changed and was not translated. Men tend to express care through actions. Providing. Protecting. Solving. Women tend to receive care through emotional responsiveness. Listening. Understanding. Validation. When these two languages stop aligning, the gap widens. The danger is not the gap itself. The danger is ignoring it. When emotional bids are missed repeatedly, the brain learns to stop sending them. A bid can be a comment, a complaint, a story about the day, a subtle request for attention. When those bids are met with distraction or dismissal, emotional shutdown begins. This shutdown is quiet. There is no warning sign. There is no announcement. By the time men notice distance, the gap has already solidified. This is why sudden breakups feel shocking. Because emotionally, the breakup happened months earlier. The emotional gap is reinforced by modern habits. Phones interrupt connection. Stress shortens patience. Constant stimulation reduces deep presence. The brain adapts to shallow interaction. But relationships require depth. Without depth, emotional trust weakens. Trust is not only about loyalty. It is about emotional reliability. Knowing that feelings will be met without judgment. Knowing that vulnerability will not be dismissed. When this trust fades, emotional self-protection begins. And self-protection looks like distance. Here is the critical insight most men never hear. Emotional safety is more attractive than physical confidence. Confidence draws attention. Emotional safety sustains connection. A man can be strong, driven, and successful. But if emotional availability is inconsistent, attraction erodes. This does not mean becoming overly emotional. It means becoming emotionally present. Presence is a skill. And skills can be trained. It starts with slowing responses. Not reacting immediately. Listening without preparing a reply. Letting emotions land before logic enters. Neuroscience shows that validation calms the amygdala. Logic does not. When someone feels understood, their nervous system relaxes. When they feel corrected, it tightens. Repeated tightening leads to emotional withdrawal. The emotional gap is not caused by one mistake. It is caused by repeated emotional misses. Each miss seems small. Together, they form distance. Men often believe consistency in actions is enough. But emotional consistency matters just as much. Showing up emotionally when it is inconvenient. When tired. When stressed. Those moments build emotional security. And emotional security creates resilience. Couples with strong emotional alignment survive stress better. They recover from conflict faster. They maintain attraction longer. Because emotional connection acts as a buffer against life pressure. Without it, every stressor feels heavier. The emotional gap also affects masculine energy. A man who feels emotionally disconnected often becomes defensive. More controlling. More withdrawn. Not because he is weak, but because disconnection triggers threat responses. The masculine nervous system is wired to protect territory. When emotional territory feels unstable, control increases. This creates a negative loop. Control reduces emotional safety. Reduced safety increases distance. Distance increases insecurity. Breaking this loop requires awareness. Not fixing. Not convincing. Not demanding. But noticing. Noticing tone changes. Noticing reduced warmth. Noticing emotional hesitation. Addressing it early without blame. Simple presence restores connection faster than grand gestures. Listening fully for 5 minutes can matter more than an expensive gift. Emotional gaps close through micro moments. Small acknowledgements. Shared silence. Eye contact. Uninterrupted attention. These moments tell the brain it is safe. Safety reopens emotional expression. When emotional expression returns, attraction stabilizes. This is why emotional intelligence is not optional for modern masculinity. It is not softness. It is strength with awareness. A man who can regulate his own emotions creates stability. A man who can hold space for another creates trust. Trust fuels intimacy. The emotional gap is not destiny. It is feedback. Feedback that something needs attention. Couples who learn to respond early grow stronger. Couples who ignore it drift apart silently. The gap only breaks couples when it stays unaddressed. Connection does not require perfection. It requires consistency. Showing up emotionally even when it feels uncomfortable. That is where real strength lives. And that is how lasting relationships survive in a distracted world.